Hello and welcome to another video. Today I am doing an oil change on my Mini Cooper S. To do an oil change, you will be needing several products and a couple of tools. First of all, you're going to need some oil. Personally, I am choosing Castrol Edge 5W30 with a specification M, just because I've been using it since 4 years and I've never had any issues with it. It's just important that you use BMW certified oil, so it should say long life. Also, you're going to be needing an oil filter. I'm just using one from Ridex because I've used it before and it works. And usually there should be an O-ring with it as well to replace the old one. And you might also need a new copper washer for the bolt of the oil pan. Tools-wise, you're going to need an 8mm hex socket or an 8mm Allen key. Also, you're going to be needing a 27mm socket for the oil filter housing. And of course an oil drying pan, as well as a picking tool and some gloves. Let's go. The first step to do an oil change on the Mini is to jack up the car. You could either use 2 jack stands in the front, or as I'm doing, just using ramps. I'm using self-built wooden ramps. It's just easy to get to the oil pan this way and also to put an oil drain pan underneath. I like to open the cap beforehand, because otherwise it'll do a glug glug situation and it won't drip out cleanly. Here we go. That is the oil pan, and right there is the bolt. One very important thing about working with an oil drain pan is that it has 2 holes. Please make sure you leave both open, otherwise you will have a great mess. Make sure to position the oil drain pan right underneath this bolt, and do make sure while you open it that the oil doesn't go anywhere else. I like to use cardboard underneath as well to ensure that my floor doesn't get full of oil. Using my 8mm Allen wrench, I'm now going to open this bolt right here, and I might need to use some kind of tool to get more force onto it now. This is what the bolt looks like. It has a copper washer on it. It's best to replace this if you can. Unfortunately, I don't have one with me right now. But if you're doing this, make sure to replace the copper washer as well. I'm going to leave the bolt out for the moment because I first want to get out the oil from the oil filter housing as well. So unlike most cars, Mini has their oil filter down here, which is only accessible from the top. You can barely see it. You'll be able to see it once we take away the water cooling reservoir. Once you have removed the 8mm bolt that is usually right here, you can push the bottom part of the reservoir forward and this way get out a pin that is situated further down below. You can feel exactly when it's out. So mine is out. And then there's 2 more latches in the front here. Okay. If you're doing this by yourself, it's going to be quite difficult to keep the water reservoir out of the way and get to the oil filter housing. Let me show you where it sits. It's right there. Mine is aluminium, it's a different one, but if your Mini is original, it will be a black plastic oil filter housing, and that will be a 27mm. Removing the filter housing should be relatively easy for you, because if you have the original plastic cap, it should only be tightened down to 25 Newton meters. However, I was really struggling here because I have an aftermarket aluminium housing that was tightened super hard. So we ended up deciding to remove the entire water reservoir to have easier access to it. The thing is, I can't remove it from here because I have the cable attached to it. Here you can see the inside mechanism of my filter housing. It works with a spring and a little magnet to keep the filter in place. The whole reason I am using this aluminium filter housing is to take the measure of the oil temperature from the inside of the oil filter housing. When you open up your new filter, you will see an extra O-ring. Do use this to replace the old sealant. To remove the old O-ring, I like to use this picking tool just because it makes things easier. Before you put in the new O-ring, make sure you oil it up a little bit. My filter works with this magnet, but yours will be able to just be pushed in. You will feel when it is stuck in there. So I ended up having to take out the entire coolant reservoir. Hopefully you don't have to do that, but if you have no access to it, you might have to. Then just drain the coolant and take out the reservoir. Then you will have more access to the oil filter housing. My oil filter housing was tightened so much that I needed to use an impact wrench to get it out. You're not supposed to do this, I know, but it's the only way I could get it out. And since it is aluminium, it looks fine, the threads are fine. So I was able to get it out, change the oil filter for a fresh one, also the O-ring, and now to put it back in, I even had to remove a couple more of water hoses and such. But now it's finally back in. For you, if you have the normal original black one, please tighten it to 25 Newton meters and you should be good to go. If you have a cartridge filter, there's pressure on it and the oil is not going to be released until you take out the filter. So it's best to leave the bolt out until you've also taken out the filter and afterwards put it back in, because otherwise you will always have still a lot of old oil in it. But now that everything is out and the filter is new, I'm going to put this bolt with a new washer, if you have one, back on, tighten it down to 25 Newton meter and then put in fresh oil. So for the Mini, for this specific model, for the R56 from I believe 2006 to 2013, it uses 4.2 liters of oil, but for the moment I'm going to put in 3.5 liters and see how much we've got, and until there's 4.2 liters or a bit less in it, until it's full. To correctly check your oil level, pull out your dipstick and clean it off before you put it back in again, and then you will get the correct reading once you pull it out from there again. Okay, looks like it's at the bottom here, so I'll definitely add some more. Okay, now I have closed the cap. I filled it up to at least halfway, a little bit more than halfway of the dipstick, because once I start the engine and idle it a little bit, the engine oil will go into the filter and then there will be less oil again. So at that point you will have to add or fill it up again. So just make sure you do that, and also do make sure that you idle the engine for a little while and really do rev it a bit, because you want to make sure that the oil filter housing is not leaking. That is what happened to me last time, and it was a major issue. So you do want to check that out for sure. And just like that, you have done an oil change and oil filter change on your Mini Cooper S. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye!